The Galactic Assembly had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. They controlled 47 different species across millions of worlds. They believed they were the masters of everything. They believed nothing could challenge their power. They were wrong. In the great floating city called the Grand Chamber, the leaders of the Assembly gathered for an important meeting. The room was massive. It could hold 10,000 beings at once. Strange lights floated in the air. Holographic displays showed maps of the entire galaxy. At the center stood Ambassador Telvok, a being made of living crystal. His body was tall and sharp, like a statue carved from glass. When he moved, light passed through him and created rainbows on the walls. Telvok was angry. His crystal body flickered with red light as he spoke to the gathered leaders. "We have discovered a new species," he announced. His voice echoed through the chamber like breaking ice. "They call themselves humans. They come from a small blue planet in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy." A holographic image appeared above the chamber. It showed Earth spinning slowly in space. Blue oceans, green forests, white clouds. It looked peaceful and harmless. "They have been sending radio signals into space for less than 200 years, Telvok continued. "They are primitive. They fight among themselves constantly. Their entire history is filled with blood and violence." The assembly members made sounds of disgust. The Veth clicked their claws. The Nixari blinked their many eyes. The Melor sang low notes of disapproval. "What do you recommend?" asked High Chancellor Morvax, an ancient being whose body was made of shifting shadows. Telvok's crystal form glowed brighter. "We do what we always do. We send the diplomatic fleet. We give them a choice. Submit to the assembly and become servants, or be destroyed completely." The vote was quick. All 47 species agreed. Humanity would bow to the assembly, or humanity would die. 300 warships would travel to Earth. The humans would see the power of the galaxy's greatest civilization, and they would surrender immediately. Nobody in that chamber knew what was waiting for them. Far across the galaxy, in the cold space above a red planet called Mars, Admiral Park Daesung sat in his office aboard the orbital station called Sentinel Prime. He was 72 years old. His hair was white. His face was covered with scars from battles fought long ago. His eyes were dark and sharp, like a hawk watching its prey. On his desk sat a cup of cold tea and a datapad showing the latest intelligence report. Human spy satellites hidden at the edge of the solar system had detected the assembly fleet preparing to launch. Decoded alien transmissions revealed their plans. Admiral Park read the report 3 times. Then he leaned back in his chair and smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had been waiting for his prey for a very long time. His aide, Lieutenant Yunhana, stood nervously by the door. She was young, only 25, and she had never seen combat. The smile on the Admiral's face made her uncomfortable. "Sir?" she asked quietly. "What are your orders?" Admiral Park stood up slowly. His old bones creaked, but his movements were still strong. He walked to the window and looked out at the shipyards below. Massive structures floated in the darkness, connected by tubes and cables. And there, in the center of it all, sat the largest thing Hana had ever seen. It was a ship, but calling it a ship felt wrong. It was a mountain of metal, a fortress designed to fly through space. Its hull was dark gray, covered in thick armor plates. Weapons bristled from every surface like thorns on a plant. The name was painted on its side in letters 50 meters tall, USS Unconquered. "Lieutenant," Admiral Park said softly, "do you know how long we have been preparing for this moment?" "Sir, 50 years." The Admiral turned to face her. 50 years ago, we detected the first signals from the Galactic Assembly. We learned their language. We studied their history. We watched them conquer species after species. And we knew, without any doubt, that one day they would come for us. He walked back to his desk and pressed a button. A holographic display appeared, showing 43 massive ships scattered throughout the solar system. Each one was identical to the unconquered. Each one was hidden behind planets and moons, waiting. "The Assembly thinks we are primitive," Admiral Park said. "They think we are weak. They think we will kneel." He looked at Hana with eyes that had seen too much death. "They are about to learn how wrong they are. What should I tell the fleet, sir?" Admiral Park picked up his tea and took a sip. It was cold, but he did not seem to notice. "Tell Captain Han Ji-yan to wake up the unconquered. Tell all ships to move to ready positions. And tell Fleet Admiral Kim Soo-bin that Operation Sleeping Giant is now active." Hana saluted and rushed out of the room. Admiral Park stood alone in his office, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 300 alien warships were coming to enslave his people. They expected to find farmers and children playing with simple technology. They expected easy victory. Instead, they would find the most dangerous species in the galaxy. A species that had spent 10,000 years fighting itself. A species that had turned war into an art form. A species that had been waiting in the shadows, preparing for this exact moment. The Admiral thought about his grandfather, who had fought in wars on Earth long ago. He thought about his father, who had helped build the first secret shipyards on Mars. He thought about his daughter, who now commanded one of the Titan-class battleships hidden near Saturn. 3 generations of the Park family had dedicated their lives to this moment. 3 generations had kept the secret. 3 generations had prepared for the day when the aliens would come. That day had finally arrived. Admiral Park finished his tea and set the cup down gently. Then he straightened his uniform, checked his appearance in a small mirror, and walked out of his office. It was time to show the galaxy what humanity could do. The Assembly's diplomatic fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system like a parade of death. 300 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed with energy shields. Their weapons hummed with power. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Fleet Commander Rillis stood on the bridge of his flagship. The pride of Veth. He was a Veth, a reptilian species with 4 arms and scales the color of burnt copper. His ancestors had been warriors for 1,000,000 years. He had conquered 12 worlds in the name of the Assembly. He had never lost a battle. He expected this mission to be easy. "Scan the system," he ordered his crew. "Find their military assets. I want to know exactly what we are dealing with." His sensor officer, an Nixari female with dozens of eyes covering her head, worked at her console. The Nixari were known for their intelligence and their ability to process information faster than any other species. She analyzed the data quickly. "Commander, I am detecting primitive satellites around the 3rd planet. Some basic space stations near the 4th planet. Nothing significant. No warships detected." Rillis made a sound of satisfaction. "As expected. These humans are even more primitive than we thought. Open a channel. Broadcast our standard greeting." The communications officer sent the message. It was the same message the Assembly had sent to dozens of species before. "Surrender or die. Join us or be destroyed. Resistance is pointless." For several minutes, there was no response. Rillis began to feel irritated. These humans were wasting his time. Then his sensor officer made a strange sound. It was a sound of confusion and fear. "Commander, I am detecting something. Near the 5th planet. What is it?" "A ship, Commander, but it cannot be right. The readings must be wrong." Rillis walked over to her console and looked at the display. His 4 hands gripped the edge of the console tightly. His scales turned pale. A single vessel was emerging from behind the massive gas giant that humans called Jupiter. It was moving toward them slowly, almost lazily, and it was enormous. The Pride of Veth was 2 kilometers long. It was one of the largest ships in the assembly fleet. The human vessel was nearly 8 kilometers long. It was a monster of metal and weapons. Its hull was covered in thick armor plates, ugly and brutal. Weapons bristled from every surface. It looked like something from a nightmare. "That is impossible," Rillis whispered. "No primitive species could build something like that." "Commander, they are hailing us." Rillis straightened his body and tried to look calm. "Put them on screen." The main view screen flickered to life. A human female appeared. She was young, with black hair pulled back tightly and dark eyes that showed no fear. She wore a gray uniform with symbols that Rillis did not recognize. Her name tag said Captain Han Ji-yan. "Assembly Fleet," she said in a flat voice. "You are entering sovereign human space. State your intentions." Rillis felt his scales tighten. No species had ever spoken to the assembly like this. No species had ever sounded so unimpressed. "Human vessel," he replied, forcing authority into his voice. "You will power down your weapons and prepare to receive our terms of surrender. Your species will be integrated into the assembly. Resistance will result in your extinction." Captain Han tilted her head slightly. Behind her, Rillis could see other humans working at their stations. None of them looked worried. Some of them were actually smiling. Why were they smiling? "Assembly Fleet Commander," Han said slowly, "I am going to give you one chance to turn around. Just one chance. Because what happens next?" She paused and looked at something off-screen. "My admiral wants to show you something." The image changed. An older human male appeared. His face was weathered and scarred. His white hair was cut short. His eyes were dark and cold, like the empty space between stars. His uniform showed the rank of admiral. His name tag said Park Dae-sung. "Welcome to the Sol System," Admiral Park said calmly. "I understand you have come to conquer us. Before you try, I think you should see what you are dealing with." On the tactical display, new warnings began to flash. More ships were appearing. They came from behind planets. They emerged from asteroid fields. They rose from the shadows of moons. Each one was identical to the first. Each one was a Titan-class battleship. Rillis counted them with growing horror. 10, 20, 30, 43. Massive warships. Each one larger than anything in his fleet. "We call them Titan-class," Admiral Park continued. "We have been building them in secret for 30 years. Each one carries 400 railgun batteries, 6,000 missile tubes, point defense systems that can track 40,000 targets at once." "This is a trick," Rillis said. His voice was shaking. "Some kind of holographic deception." "No trick, Commander. What you are seeing is real. And these ships are designed specifically to fight you." Captain Han appeared again on the screen. "Our weapons are kinetic, Commander. Solid projectiles accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. Your energy shields are useless against them. Our missiles carry fusion warheads. Your hull plating will not survive." Rillis looked at his tactical display. His 300 ships were surrounded. The human battleships had formed a sphere around his fleet while he was distracted by the conversation. He was trapped. "You cannot defeat the entire assembly," he said desperately. "We have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. You cannot win." Admiral Park nodded slowly. "You are probably right. We cannot defeat your entire civilization. Not yet, but we can destroy your fleet. Right here, right now. Every single ship, every single crew member. We can turn this entire region of space into a graveyard. The admiral leaned forward. "And then we will send a message to your assembly. We will tell them what happened here. We will tell them that 300 of their finest warships were destroyed by a primitive species they tried to enslave." Rillis said nothing. He could not speak. "Leave now," Admiral Park said. "Go back to your assembly. Tell them what you saw here today. Tell them that humanity is not interested in war. But tell them this also. If anyone threatens our home again, we will not just defend ourselves. We will come for your worlds. Every single one. And we will not stop until nothing remains." The screen went dark. Rillis stood frozen on his bridge. His crew was silent. The only sound was the soft hum of the ship's systems. Finally, he made his decision. "All ships," he ordered quietly. "Reverse course. Maximum speed. We are leaving." His second officer stared at him in shock. "Commander, the assembly can do whatever they want to me. I am not sending 300 ships to die. Not today. Not ever." The fleet turned and fled. 300 warships, representing the combined power of the Galactic Assembly, ran away from a single solar system. On the bridge of the Unconquered, Captain Han Ji-yeon allowed herself a small smile. "They are running, Admiral." Admiral Park Dae-sung nodded slowly. He felt no joy, only the cold weight of duty. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly. "They will be back. And next time, they will bring more." He looked out at the stars where the alien fleet was disappearing. "Contact Fleet Admiral Kim Soo-bin. Tell her Phase 1 is complete. The war for humanity's future had just begun." Commander Rillis stood alone in his quarters aboard the Pride of Veth. The ship was traveling at maximum speed back toward assembly space. 300 warships fled through the darkness like frightened animals running from a predator. Rillis had not slept in 2 days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the human battleships. Those massive, ugly vessels covered in armor and weapons. Those cold human eyes that showed no fear. He could not forget the Admiral's words. They echoed in his mind like a curse. "We will come for your worlds. Every single one." He had to write his report. The assembly needed to know what had happened. But how could he explain? How could he tell the most powerful civilization in the galaxy that a primitive species had made him run away? Rillis sat down at his desk and began to record his message. "This report is for the High Council of the Galactic Assembly," he began. His voice was tired. "I am Fleet Commander Rillis of the Veth. I was sent to subjugate the human species of the Sol System. I have failed." He paused. The words felt like poison in his mouth. "The humans are not what we expected. They are not primitive. They are not weak. They have been preparing for our arrival for 50 of their years. They have built weapons we have never seen before, ships larger than anything in our fleet. They knew we were coming, and they were ready." Rillis pulled up the tactical data from the encounter. The images appeared on his screen. The massive human battleships, the weapons analysis, the projections of what would have happened if they had fought. "Our shields are useless against their weapons," he continued. "They use kinetic projectiles, physical objects accelerated to extreme speeds. Our energy barriers cannot stop them. Our plasma cannons cannot penetrate their armor. Every simulation my officers ran showed the same result: complete destruction of our fleet within minutes." He thought about his crew. 12,000 Veth served aboard the ships under his command. 12,000 lives that would have ended in the cold darkness of space. "I made the decision to retreat. Some will call me a coward. Some will demand my execution. I accept this. But I saved my fleet. I brought back information that the assembly needs to hear." Rillis stood up and walked to the window. Stars streaked past as the ship traveled through faster-than-light space. The humans have a saying, he said quietly. I found it in their broadcast archives while we were in their system. They say, do not wake a sleeping giant. I believe we have woken them. I believe we have made a terrible mistake. He ended the recording and sent it to the Assembly's communication network. Then he sat down heavily and waited for whatever would come next. 3 days later, the fleet arrived at the Assembly's capital world. Rillis was immediately summoned to the Grand Chamber. The trial, if it could be called that, lasted only a few hours. Ambassador Telvok led the accusations. His crystal body glowed with fury as he spoke. You fled from primitives. Telvok shouted. You had 300 warships, the finest vessels in the Assembly fleet, and you ran away from 43 ships. 43 ships that would have destroyed us completely, Rillis replied calmly. I showed you the data. I showed you the simulations. We cannot defeat their technology. Technology? Telvok's laughter was like breaking glass. They throw rocks. Metal rocks. It is the most primitive form of warfare. Primitive weapons that our shields cannot stop. Primitive armor that our weapons cannot break. Sometimes, Ambassador, the primitive way is the effective way. High Chancellor Morvax, the shadow being who led the assembly, raised one of his dark limbs for silence. Commander Rillis, he said in his deep, echoing voice. You say the humans knew we were coming. How is this possible? They have been watching us, Chancellor, listening to our communications, learning our language and our ways. They knew exactly when we would arrive and exactly how to respond. And you believe they are a true threat to the Assembly? Rillis took a deep breath. Yes, Chancellor. I do. Not today. Today, they can only defend their own system. But they are building more ships. They are expanding. In 10 years, maybe 20, they will be strong enough to attack us. And when that day comes, I do not think we can stop them. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives from 47 species shouted and argued. Some demanded war. Some demanded diplomacy. Some demanded that Rillis be executed for his failure and his warnings. Morvax raised his limb again. Silence fell. We will vote, the Chancellor announced. The question is simple. Do we send the war fleet to destroy the humans while we still can? Or do we attempt peaceful contact? The vote took hours. Species argued with species. Old grudges and new fears mixed together. In the end, the result was closer than anyone expected. 20-4 species voted for war. 23 species voted for peace. Ambassador Telvok's crystal form pulsed with satisfaction. It is decided. We will gather our full military power. We will assemble the largest fleet in Assembly history. And we will go to the Sol system and burn those primitive creatures to ash. High Chancellor Morvax nodded slowly. So be it. We will begin preparations immediately. Commander Rillis, you will be stripped of your rank and held for trial after the campaign is complete. Guards moved toward Rillis. He did not resist. As they led him away, he turned back to face the assembly one last time. You are making a mistake, he said loudly. The worst mistake in the history of our civilization. The humans will not surrender. They will not bow. They will fight to the last being, and they will make us pay in blood for every step we take toward their world. Telvok laughed again. Let them fight. Let them pay in blood. We have millions of ships and billions of soldiers. What do they have? Rillis met the crystal ambassador's eyes. They have something we do not understand, Ambassador. Something we have never faced before. They have the will to do whatever it takes to survive. They call it humanity. The guards dragged him from the chamber. The doors closed behind him. Across the galaxy, Admiral Park Dae-sung received the intelligence report. Human spies hidden in assembly space had intercepted the vote results. War was coming. The largest fleet in galactic history was being assembled. The admiral sat in his office and read the numbers. 10,000 warships. 50 million soldiers. Enough firepower to destroy planets. He should have been afraid. Instead, he smiled that cold, knowing smile. Lieutenant Yoon, he called. Hana appeared at his door. Yes, Admiral? Contact Fleet Admiral Kim Soo-bin. Tell her to begin Phase 2. Phase 2, sir? Admiral Park looked out at the shipyards where new Titan-class battleships were being built. 100 more would be ready within the year. 1,000 more within the decade. They want a war, he said quietly. We are going to give them one they will never forget. 2 years passed. The Galactic Assembly gathered its forces from across the stars. Ships came from every corner of known space. Warriors from 47 species prepared for battle. 10,000 warships assembled at the border of human territory. It was the largest military force in the history of the galaxy. Ambassador Telvok himself led the fleet. He stood on the bridge of the Grand Conquest, a massive command ship built specifically for this campaign. His crystal body glowed with pride as he looked at the holographic display showing his armada. Today, he announced to his fleet, we end the human threat forever. Today, we remind the galaxy why the Assembly rules supreme. No primitive species can stand against our might. The fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel. Thousands of ships disappeared into the void, racing toward the Sol system. Admiral Park Dae-sung stood on the bridge of the Unconquered. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. Captain Han Ji-yeon stood beside him, her face calm but her eyes sharp. They will arrive in 6 hours, Admiral, she reported. 10,000 ships, 50 million soldiers. And how many do we have? 147 Titan-class battleships, 200 smaller support vessels, 12 million soldiers across all forces. Admiral Park nodded slowly. The numbers were not good. They were outnumbered more than 10 to 1 in ships. But numbers did not always decide battles. Strategy, technology, and will could overcome any disadvantage. Are the defense platforms ready? Yes, sir. 12,000 orbital weapons platforms are active throughout the system. The minefield around the inner planets is complete. The fighter squadrons are standing by. The Admiral looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 10,000 enemy ships were coming to destroy his world. His home, his people, everything he had spent his life protecting. Open a channel to all ships, he ordered. Captain Han nodded and activated the communication system. This is Admiral Park Dae-sung to all forces, he said. His voice was calm but strong. In 6 hours, the enemy will arrive. They come with 10,000 ships and 50 million soldiers. They come to enslave our world and destroy our people. They think we are weak. They think we will break. He paused, letting his words sink in. They are wrong. For 50 years, we have prepared for this moment. For 50 years, we have built ships and trained soldiers and waited for the day when we would have to fight for our survival. That day has come. On ships throughout the solar system, human soldiers listened. Fighter pilots strapped into their cockpits. Gunners loaded ammunition into railgun batteries. Engineers ran final checks on engines and weapons. Everyone felt the weight of the moment. I will not lie to you, Admiral Park continued. Many of us will die today. This will be the hardest battle humanity has ever fought. But remember this, we fight for our homes. We fight for our families. We fight for our future. And we fight knowing that we have one advantage the enemy does not understand. His voice grew stronger. We are human. We do not surrender. We do not give up. We face death and we spit in its face. Our ancestors survived ice ages and plagues and wars. They crossed oceans and climbed mountains and walked on the moon. They never stopped. They never quit. And neither will we. Captain Han felt tears forming in her eyes. Around the bridge, crew members stood straighter. The fear in their eyes was replaced by something stronger. Determination, pride, fury. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity can do. Today, we make our ancestors proud. Today, we fight. Across the fleet, cheers erupted. On every ship, in every station, human voices rose in defiance. They were ready. 6 hours later, the assembly fleet arrived. Telvok watched as his ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. 10,000 vessels spread across space like a cloud of death. Weapons charged. Shields activated. The ambassador's crystal form pulsed with anticipation. "Begin the assault," he ordered. "Destroy everything." The fleet moved forward. Thousands of ships advanced toward the inner planets where the humans waited. And then the mines detonated. The minefield stretched across billions of kilometers of space. Millions of small devices, each one carrying a fusion warhead, activated as the assembly ships approached. Explosions bloomed across the void like flowers of fire. Hundreds of assembly ships died in the first minute. Their shields, designed to stop energy weapons, could not prevent the physical impact of the explosions. Hulls cracked. Reactors overloaded. Crew members screamed as their ships broke apart around them. "Continue advancing," Telvok shouted. "Push through the minefield." The fleet obeyed, but the damage was done. By the time they cleared the mines, 800 ships had been destroyed. Then the orbital platforms opened fire. 12,000 weapon stations, hidden among asteroids and moons, unleashed their payloads. Railgun slugs traveling at incredible speeds slammed into assembly ships. Missiles carrying nuclear warheads turned cruisers into expanding clouds of debris. Admiral Park watched the battle from the Unconquered's bridge. The tactical display showed the chaos unfolding. "Enemy fleet is through the outer defense line," Captain Han reported. "They have lost approximately 2,000 ships." "Begin Phase 3, the Admiral ordered. The Titan-class battleships moved forward. 147 mountains of metal and weapons advanced to meet the enemy. Their railguns fired in coordinated volleys, each shot perfectly aimed to cause maximum damage. Telvok stared at his tactical display in horror. His beautiful fleet was dying. Ships exploded everywhere he looked. The humans fought like demons, striking from every direction, using the planets and moons as cover. "Fire everything!" he screamed. "Destroy those battleships." The assembly ships unleashed their full power. Plasma beams and energy torpedoes streaked through space toward the human vessels. Some found their targets. Armor plates shattered. Systems failed. Crew members died, but the Titan-class ships kept coming. Their thick hulls absorbed punishment that would have destroyed any other vessel. Their weapons never stopped firing. The battle raged for 12 hours. 12 hours of fire and death and destruction. 12 hours of screaming weapons and dying ships. 12 hours that decided the fate of two civilizations. When it was over, the space around Sol was filled with debris. Wreckage from thousands of ships drifted through the void. Bodies frozen in the cold of space floated among the ruins. Ambassador Telvok looked at his display. Of 10,000 ships, fewer than 2,000 remained. The human battleships had been damaged, but most still fought. The defense platforms still fired. The human fleet was wounded but unbroken. "Ambassador," his tactical officer said quietly, "we cannot win. If we continue, we will be completely destroyed." Telvok's crystal form cracked. Small pieces fell from his body like tears. "Retreat," he whispered. "All ships, retreat." The surviving assembly vessels turned and fled. On the bridge of the Unconquered, Admiral Park watched them go. His ship had taken heavy damage. 32 of his Titan-class battleships had been destroyed. Millions of humans had died. But they had one. Captain Han stood beside him, blood running from a cut on her forehead. "They are running, Admiral. We did it. We won." Admiral Park did not celebrate. He thought of all the people who had died, all the families who would never be whole again, all the empty spaces where loved ones used to be. "This is not victory," he said quietly. "This is survival. Today we proved we cannot be conquered. But the war is not over." He looked at the retreating enemy ships. "Contact Fleet Admiral Kim Soo-bin. Tell her to begin Phase 4. Captain Han frowned. "Phase 4, sir? What is Phase 4? Admiral Park's eyes were cold and hard. "We showed them we can defend ourselves. Now we show them what happens when we go on offense." The human fleet began to move. Not toward Earth, not toward safety, toward the stars, toward the assembly, toward war. 5 years after the Battle of Seoul, the galaxy was a different place. The human fleet had not stopped after defending their home. They pushed outward, system by system, world by world. Admiral Park led the campaign personally, despite his advancing age. The Titan-class battleships became legends, feared across known space. The assembly worlds fell one by one, not because the humans destroyed them, but because they offered a choice: surrender peacefully and become allies, or fight and lose everything. Most chose peace. They had heard stories of what happened to those who chose to fight. Ambassador Telvok was captured during the siege of his homeworld. His crystal body, once proud and bright, was now dim and cracked. He was brought before Admiral Park in chains. "You should have listened," the Admiral said quietly. "You should have accepted our first warning and left us alone." "We were the masters of the galaxy," Telvok replied. His voice was broken. "We ruled for 12,000 years. How could we accept that primitives could defeat us? That was your mistake. You thought we were primitives because we were young, because we fought among ourselves, because we used kinetic weapons instead of energy beams." Admiral Park shook his head slowly. "You never understood that our violence, our wars, our conflicts, they made us strong. They taught us how to fight, how to survive, how to never give up." Telvok's crystal form flickered weakly. "What will you do with us? Destroy our worlds? Enslave our people?" The Admiral was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "No, we could. You know, we could. But that is not who we are. That is not what humanity wants." He gestured, and guards removed Telvok's chains. "We want peace," Admiral Park said. "We want trade and cooperation, and a galaxy where all species can live without fear. That is what we have always wanted. We built our weapons and our battleships because we knew that sometimes peace must be protected with strength." The assembly was dissolved. In its place, a new organization was formed: the Galactic Council. Every species had an equal voice. Every world had equal rights. Humans did not rule this new order. They simply protected it. Admiral Park Dae-seung retired 3 years after the war ended. He was 80 years old, tired and scarred from a lifetime of service. He returned to Earth, to a small house near the ocean where his wife had waited for him through all the long years. Captain Han Ji-yeon took command of the Unconquered. She led the Galactic Defense Fleet, a force of ships from dozens of species, all dedicated to keeping peace in the galaxy. The Titan-class battleships still patrolled the stars, but they rarely needed to fire their weapons. Their presence alone was enough. Commander Rillis, the Veth, who had retreated from the first encounter with humanity, was released from prison after the war. To everyone's surprise, he requested permission to serve on a human vessel. He wanted to understand the species that had defeated everything he knew. He served on the Unconquered for 10 years. He learned human customs and human history. He ate human food and told human jokes. He became friends with the crew members who had once been his enemies. One night, Captain Han found him standing on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. "What are you thinking about, old friend?" she asked. Rillis was quiet for a long moment. His scales, once the color of burnt copper, had faded with age, but his eyes were still sharp. "I am thinking about the first time I saw your battleship," he said. "The Unconquered, emerging from behind Jupiter. I was so afraid. I had never been afraid before in my life." Han smiled. "And now?" "Now I understand." Rillis turned to face her. "We thought we were strong because we had ruled for thousands of years, because we had conquered so many worlds. But we were not strong. We were simply comfortable. We had forgotten what it meant to truly fight for survival." He looked back at the stars. Humanity never forgot. Every generation faced challenges that could have destroyed them. Diseases, wars, natural disasters. They survived because they refused to give up. That is true strength. Not weapons or ships or technology. The will to keep going no matter what. Captain Han stood beside him in comfortable silence. "The galaxy is at peace now," she said finally. "Because of people like Admiral Park. Because of the sacrifices so many made. Yes, and the peace will last as long as humanity remembers its history. As long as they remember what they had to do to survive." Rillis looked at the human woman beside him. She was older now, gray in her hair and lines on her face. But her eyes still burned with the same fire he had seen in Admiral Park's eyes so many years ago. "Promise me something," the old vet said. "What?" "Never forget who you are. Never become what the assembly was. Never become so comfortable that you forget how to fight." Han nodded slowly. "I promise." Far away, on a small blue planet called Earth, Admiral Park Daesung sat on his porch and watched the sunset. His wife brought him tea, the same tea he had drunk cold during so many battles. Now it was warm and sweet and peaceful. The sky was orange and pink and purple. Clouds drifted lazily across the horizon. Birds sang in the trees. Children played in the streets of the nearby town. Life continued, beautiful and simple and precious. Park thought about all the people who had made this moment possible. All the soldiers who had died. All the families who had sacrificed. All the leaders who had made impossible decisions. He thought about his grandfather, who had first dreamed of protecting humanity from threats beyond the stars. He thought about his father, who had built the first secret shipyards. He thought about his daughter, who now commanded a battleship of her own. 3 generations of the Park family had dedicated their lives to keeping Earth safe. They had succeeded. A child ran past his house, laughing and chasing a ball. The child did not know about the wars, did not know about the assembly or the Titan-class battleships or the millions who had died. The child only knew that the sun was warm and the ball was fun and life was good. That was the point. That was always the point. Admiral Park smiled. Not his cold, tactical smile. A real smile, warm and content that the human race had faced the greatest threat in its history and survived. They had shown the galaxy that some species should not be disturbed. They had earned their place among the stars. And now, finally, there was peace. The old admiral finished his tea, kissed his wife on the cheek, and walked inside as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. The same stars that humanity had conquered. The same stars that would never threaten Earth again. Not as long as humans remembered who they were. Not as long as the sleeping giant remained awake.